Hello, love. If you're listening to this, perhaps life's been a bit heavy lately. Maybe you've lost someone. Maybe you're worried about tomorrow. Or maybe you're simply tired of pretending you're all right. Well, pop the kettle on, get yourself comfortable, and let an old woman tell your story, not someone else's story. It's mine. My name's Margaret Ashcroft, and I'm 9 years old. I live alone in a tiny stone cottage on Willow Lane, tucked away in the rolling hills of the Yorkshire Dales. It's not much to look at. The roof leaks whenever we have proper British weather, which, let's be honest, is most days. The garden's a little wild now. The roses don't bloom quite like they used to. And every floorboard in this old place seems to groan louder than my knees. Still, it's home. You see, this cottage once echoed with laughter. My husband, Arthur, always had the radio on while making tea. He'd sing terribly out of tune, absolutely dreadful, and somehow I'd fall in love with him all over again every single day. Then one winter morning, he was gone. Just like that. After 52 years together, the silence became unbearable. People often think loneliness is about being by yourself. It isn't. Loneliness is reaching for the second mug when you're making tea. Then, remembering there's no one left to drink it. It's setting the dinner table. Only to put the extra plate back into the cupboard. It's hearing the front gate creak and, for one tiny hopeful second, thinking they're finally home. Even when you know they never will be. For months, I barely left this cottage. I closed the curtains, ignored the neighbours, stopped answering the phone. I convinced myself my best days were behind me. Funny thing about grief. It whispers lies until they sound like truth. Then one rainy Tuesday, there came a knock at my door. I nearly ignored it. But something, perhaps Arthur himself, nudged me to answer. Standing outside was a young woman named Emily. She couldn't have been older than 30. Her mascara had run from crying. She looked frozen to the bone. I'm terribly sorry to bother you. I don't know who else to talk to. Now, I had absolutely no idea that opening my front door that afternoon would change both our lives forever. Because what Emily told me next reminded me of the darkest chapter of my own life, and it forced me to finally face a lesson I'd spent years trying to ignore. So, if you'd like to hear the rest, I'll put the kettle back on and we'll continue together. Do you know something, love? Sometimes a stranger walks into your life, not because they need your help, but because they unknowingly remind you of the person you used to be. That was Emily. She sat opposite me, wrapped both hands around the warm mug of tea, and stared into the fire. I don't think I can do this anymore. I've tried being strong, but every morning feels harder than the last. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I walked over to the old oak cabinet in my sitting room. Inside was a faded blue tin box. It's funny, we all have one, don't we?
Yeah.
A little place where we hide pieces of the past. Inside mine were yellowing photographs. Arthur's pocket watch. A pressed daisy he'd picked for me nearly 50 years ago. And a bundle of letters tied together with a worn red ribbon. She asked, "Who wrote those?" "My husband." I smiled. "Every single one." She gently touched the ribbon. "You still read them?" "Oh, more often than I'd like to admit." I untied the bundle and pulled out one letter. The paper had become so fragile that I was almost frightened to unfold it. You see, Arthur wasn't always here. When he was 32, he travelled to Scotland for work during a terrible recession. There weren't many jobs where we lived. Weeks became months. Letters arrived less and less. There were no mobile phones back then, no video calls, no little blue ticks telling you your message had been read. Just silence. And do you know what silence does? It lets fear write stories that aren't true. Every night I'd lie awake imagining accidents, imagining he'd forgotten me, imagining I'd never hear his laugh again. One afternoon, I looked in the mirror. I hardly recognized the woman staring back. She wasn't living. She was waiting. There's a difference. Waiting steals today's happiness because it's busy worrying about tomorrow. Living, well, living means making the best of the day you've been given. Oh. That very evening, I made myself a promise. Every morning, before allowing fear to speak, I'd find 3 things worth being grateful for. Some days they were tiny things. The smell of fresh bread. The robin is sitting on the garden fence. Sunshine breaking through grey clouds. Other days, it was simply the fact that I'd opened my eyes and been given another morning. Little by little, something remarkable happened. My circumstances hadn't changed, but I had. I laughed again. I volunteered at the village library. I baked cakes for neighbours. Life slowly found its way back into my heart. Emily listened without saying a word. Then she quietly asked, "So, did Arthur ever come home?" I looked into the fire, smiled softly, and nodded. "Oh yes, love. He did." But that's not the miracle. The miracle was that I'd already found myself before he walked back through that front door. But Emily's story was only just beginning. Because only a few weeks later, someone knocked on her door. Oh. And what she found waiting outside made us both burst into tears. 3 weeks passed, then 4. Emily kept every promise she'd made that afternoon. Each morning, I write a hopeful sentence. Today, I choose courage. Today, my children deserve my smile. Today, I'll do what I can instead of worrying about what I can't. She found part-time work at the local bakery. The pay wasn't brilliant, but it gave her purpose. The neighbours noticed she'd begun smiling again. Her little boy started laughing more. Even the house felt different. Not because life had suddenly become easy, but because hope had moved back in. Then, one crisp autumn morning, there came another knock at her front door. This time it wasn't a neighbour. It was the village postman. He handed her a thick envelope. She recognised the handwriting instantly. Her husband, Daniel. Her hands trembled so much she could barely open it. Inside was a letter. Daniel explained everything. The construction company he'd joined had gone bankrupt only weeks after he arrived. His phone had been stolen. He'd been living in temporary accommodation while desperately searching for another job. Ashamed that he had nothing to send home, he'd convinced himself Emily deserved better than broken promises. But eventually, he found steady work. Enclosed with the letter was enough money to help his family get back on their feet. At the very bottom, he'd written something I'll never forget. I survived because I never stopped believing we'd have another beginning. Emily arrived at my cottage that afternoon in floods of tears. Yeah. She hugged me tighter than anyone had hugged me in years. "You were right." "No." I gently corrected her. I wasn't right.
Hope was.
People often misunderstand hope. Hope isn't pretending life is perfect. Hope doesn't erase grief.
No.
It doesn't stop heartbreak. And it certainly doesn't guarantee tomorrow will unfold exactly as we planned. Hope simply whispers, keep going.
Yeah.
Even when your legs are tired,
Yeah.
even when your heart feels broken, even when every voice around you tells you to give up.
Yeah.
Today,
Yeah.
I'm nearly 80. Arthur's been gone for many years now. I still miss him every single day. Some mornings, I still reach for that second teacup. Old habits never really leave us. But neither does love. If my story has taught me anything, it's this. We can't always choose what happens to us. But we can choose the thoughts we carry through the storm. And sometimes, that single choice changes everything. So wherever you're listening from, whether you're sitting in your car, walking home, or quietly crying where nobody can see, please remember this old woman's words. Don't wait for life to become perfect before you allow yourself to smile. Find one small reason to be grateful today, then another tomorrow. Because hope doesn't arrive all at once. It grows, one small choice at a time.
Yeah.
Thank you for sitting beside my fire.
Yeah.
Until next time, take care of yourself. And don't stop believing that brighter days are still on their way. Hope is not about denying life's hardships. It's about choosing courage despite them. When we focus on gratitude, kindness, and the good we can do today, we gain the strength to face tomorrow. Sometimes the greatest miracle isn't that our circumstances change. It's that we do. In the end, I want to request you, if you like my story, please subscribe, like, and share. Also, give your valuable comments. Thank you for watching.